In the blistering heat of an endless desert, a solitary traveler stumbles upon an alien woman on the brink of death, stranded and abandoned. As they share a simple act of compassion, their lives intertwine in a powerful moment of connection that transcends species and worlds. In a universe where survival often comes at the cost of others, can one small gesture truly change the course of everything? The story begins by setting the scene in an unforgiving desert, where the protagonist's journey unfolds under the blazing heat of twin suns. The vast desert stretches out endlessly in front of them, with the orange sands rippling in the harsh sunlight. The description of the landscape is critical in conveying the severity of the environment. The heat is intense and all-encompassing, making it clear that the protagonist is facing a challenging, even life-threatening journey. The desert is portrayed not just as a backdrop, but as an active, almost hostile character in the story, amplifying the protagonist's struggle. As the protagonist moves through the desert, their boots sink into the dry, cracked earth with every step, a subtle but effective detail that emphasizes the weight of each movement. This creates a feeling of exhaustion and weariness. The dry, parched ground serves as a constant reminder of the hostile environment, where every step taken requires significant effort. The protagonist is alone in this desolate place, and there is no relief from the relentless sun. The heat is described as oppressive, a word that conveys the physical and psychological toll of the desert's cruelty. Adding to the challenge is the thick dust that fills the air, making every breath feel like inhaling sand. This detail not only adds to the physical discomfort of the journey, but also creates a sense of suffocation and isolation. The difficulty of breathing underscores the harshness of the environment and foreshadows the potential dangers that lie ahead. The protagonist is not just struggling with physical exertion, but also with the suffocating conditions that threaten to drain their strength and willpower. The isolation is compounded by the mention of the remote outpost the protagonist is heading to, which is still far off in the distance. The fact that the outpost is so far away hints at the vastness of the desert and the sense of solitude that comes with crossing it. This sets up an atmosphere of anticipation and uncertainty, as the protagonist's destination seems increasingly unreachable. The oppressive heat and the vast, endless desert make it clear that the journey is more than just a physical one. It's also a mental and emotional challenge, one that will test the protagonist's endurance and resolve. As the protagonist continues their trek through the desolate ravine, they hear an unusual sound, faint yet distinct from the usual hum of the desert wind. This sound is described as something like a soft, strained breath, which immediately creates an air of intrigue and tension. The faintness of the noise adds to its mystery, making it seem almost otherworldly. It stands in stark contrast to the harsh, relentless wind and the oppressive silence that the desert typically imposes. The sound seems unnatural, stirring the protagonist's instincts and curiosity. The presence of such a sound in such a barren, inhospitable place suggests that someone else might be nearby, and the protagonist's immediate reaction is one of caution. At first, the protagonist dismisses the noise, assuming it's just the wind or a trick of the desert's oppressive atmosphere. However, the repetition of the sound challenges this assumption, growing louder with each passing moment. This shift in volume emphasizes that this is not just a figment of imagination, but something tangible, forcing the protagonist to take notice. The repetitive nature of the sound also serves to heighten the suspense, as the protagonist begins to sense that they are not alone in the desert. The atmosphere becomes thick with anticipation, and the protagonist's mind races, trying to discern the source of the noise. The protagonist stops, alert and wary, and instinctively reaches for the weapon at their side. A subtle yet telling action that shows the shift from simple traveler to someone prepared for potential danger. This instinct to arm themselves underscores the sense of unease building in the scene, as the protagonist is now on high alert. The desert, which once seemed like an empty, lifeless landscape, now feels alive with the possibility of unknown threats. The tension in the air is palpable, as every sound seems amplified in the stillness, and the protagonist's sense of security begins to slip away. Scanning the barren surroundings, the protagonist sees nothing at first. Just the same vast, lifeless landscape they have been navigating for hours. This heightens the mystery, as the desert, which initially felt oppressive in its solitude, now seems almost deceptive, hiding something from view. Yet, the sound continues, becoming more distinct and undeniable. It is only when the protagonist focuses their attention further that they notice the silhouette lying motionless against a rock. This revelation marks a turning point in the narrative, as the protagonist's journey through the desert suddenly takes on a new direction, from simple survival to discovering something, or someone, unexpected in the vast, empty space. The sound, once a subtle background detail, becomes a pivotal moment in the plot, drawing the protagonist's attention toward the alien woman who will alter the course of their journey. The protagonist's discovery of the alien woman in the desert marks a pivotal moment in the story, shifting the focus from the harsh environmental struggle to an encounter with something truly unexpected. As the protagonist approaches the motionless silhouette against the rock, there is a sense of disbelief. The desert, which had seemed devoid of life up until that point, now holds a secret. At first, the protagonist wonders if this is a mirage caused by the heat, a trick of the sun's cruel rays playing on their exhausted mind. This initial doubt creates an eerie sense of uncertainty, as the protagonist can't fully trust their senses. The harsh environment, after all, is known to play with perception, distorting reality in ways that make it difficult to distinguish illusion from truth. However, as the protagonist moves closer, they see that the figure is not a mirage, but a real being, an alien woman, her presence unmistakable and striking. The alien skin is described as shimmering with a soft silver-blue glow, a visual detail that immediately contrasts with the harsh, barren desert landscape around her. The color of her skin is unusual and exotic, setting her apart from any other creature the protagonist has encountered before. This shimmering appearance suggests something otherworldly and beautiful, and it creates a sense of wonder amidst the otherwise bleak surroundings. The stark contrast between her glowing skin and the orange desert sands reinforces the idea that she is not of this world, making her presence feel almost ethereal. The alien woman's physical state adds to the gravity of the situation. Her body is frail, and her once lustrous hair is now matted and dirty, signs of her prolonged exposure to the desert's unforgiving conditions. These details paint a picture of someone who has been abandoned and left to suffer alone in the wilderness, emphasizing her vulnerability. The contrast between her once proud appearance and her current weakened state evokes sympathy and compassion from the protagonist, who recognizes that this powerful being is now in dire need of help. Her physical frailty humanizes her in a way that challenges the protagonist's preconceptions of her species, known for their intelligence, beauty, and pride, and evokes a sense of responsibility to help. The alien woman's breathing is shallow and labored, a clear sign of the toll the desert has taken on her. This vulnerable state is a stark juxtaposition to the prideful image of her species that the protagonist is familiar with. The protagonist's immediate reaction is one of caution, but also concern. As the alien woman's violet eyes flutter open at the protagonist's approach, there is a moment of mutual recognition. She senses the protagonist's presence, but it is unclear whether she views them as a potential threat or as a source of salvation. The tension in this moment is palpable, as both parties seem uncertain of each other's intentions. The protagonist is frozen in place, heart pounding, fully aware that this encounter could go in many different directions. The alien woman's response is one of confusion and fear, unsure whether the human will harm her or help her, which adds an emotional layer to the interaction, signaling that despite their differences, both are in a state of vulnerability. This discovery of the alien woman shifts the narrative from the protagonist's solitary struggle against the desert to a more personal, emotionally charged connection with another living being. It also begins to challenge the protagonist's perceptions and preconceived notions about alien life, hinting at the deeper themes of empathy, compassion, and the shared struggles that transcend species. The unexpected nature of the encounter forces the protagonist to confront the reality of the situation, setting the stage for a transformative journey for both the human and the alien. As the protagonist approaches the alien woman, she is in a state of extreme vulnerability, which becomes increasingly apparent as she speaks. Her condition is dire. Starved, dehydrated, and abandoned, she has clearly been stranded in the desert for an extended period. Her frailty is evident in every aspect of her appearance, from her emaciated body to the shallow, labored breaths she takes. This not only highlights her physical suffering, but also emphasizes her emotional and psychological despair. She has lost all hope of survival, as shown by her belief that no one would ever find her. The alien woman's whispered words, "I didn't think anyone would find me," carry a deep sense of hopelessness, and the pain in her voice is palpable. She is not just physically weak, but emotionally defeated, resigned to the idea that her life has come to an end in the desolate wilderness. The moment she speaks is critical because it establishes the alien woman as a sentient being, one capable of experiencing the same emotions as any human. She is not some invincible creature or a distant, untouchable being. Rather, she is portrayed as someone who is just as fragile as anyone else. The protagonist's immediate response is to kneel beside her, instinctively offering comfort and reassurance, telling her, "You're safe now. Let me help you." This interaction marks a shift in the protagonist's role from mere traveler to caretaker, as they recognize the alien woman's desperate need for assistance. The protagonist's empathy and willingness to help stem from the shared human experience of suffering and survival, and their compassion overrides any fear or hesitation that might come from the alien's unfamiliarity. The alien woman's despair is further emphasized as she recounts her situation. She explains that she was separated from her ship, her people, and her crew, leaving her stranded in a hostile environment with no hope of rescue. This revelation paints a picture of her abandonment, suggesting that she is not just a lone individual, but a member of a larger, more complex society. Her situation is a tragic one, as she has been left to die alone, with no chance of survival in the vast desert. The fact that she refers to her abandonment as a betrayal adds emotional weight to her plight, making it clear that her suffering is not just physical, but psychological as well. The protagonist, hearing her story and seeing the raw pain in her eyes, is faced with an emotional dilemma. It is clear that the alien woman is on the brink of death, and it would take more than just kindness to save her. Yet the protagonist feels a deep sense of responsibility to help her. This moment showcases the humanity of the protagonist, who, despite the alien woman's otherworldly appearance, sees her as a fellow being in need. The stark contrast between the alien's initial pride and dignity, symbols of her species' superiority, and her current helpless state only enhances the emotional complexity of the moment. It challenges the protagonist's perception of what it means to be other and emphasizes the shared vulnerability that transcends species. The alien woman's desperation pulls the protagonist out of their own survival-focused mindset, setting the stage for an act of empathy that will define the course of their relationship. In a moment of profound empathy and selflessness, the protagonist makes a pivotal choice: to share his food rations with the alien woman, even though they are both stranded in the desert, struggling to survive. This decision is not made lightly. The protagonist has traveled through the desert for hours, and the harsh conditions have drained him physically, leaving him weary and vulnerable as well. The dry, hot air, combined with the desolate landscape, makes every step feel like an exhausting ordeal. Yet, despite his own hardships, the protagonist sees something in the alien woman that stirs his compassion. Her gaunt face and desperate hunger mirror the universal experience of survival. In this moment, he recognizes that both of them are in a struggle for their lives, and no matter the differences in their species or backgrounds, they share this common need for sustenance. Initially, the protagonist's instinct is to keep his rations for himself. After all, survival in such a harsh environment is a matter of personal preservation. Yet the alien woman's condition, her frailty, her suffering, compels the protagonist to set aside his own needs. This internal conflict highlights the human capacity for empathy, as the protagonist sees her not as an other or a foreign being, but as someone in pain, just as he is. The protagonist understands that, while his rations might not be enough to save him for long, the small sacrifice of sharing them could make a significant difference in the alien woman's survival. This act of compassion, though simple, becomes a powerful gesture that transcends the dire circumstances. When the protagonist offers her a piece of the synthetic food, his words are humble. "It's not much, but it's all I have." This remark underscores his awareness of the limited resources they both have, but it also highlights the significance of his offer. The food he holds out is not luxurious or even appetizing. It's a synthetic ration, a stark reminder of the stark survival conditions they face. However, the protagonist recognizes that this small, simple act of sharing could offer the alien woman the chance she desperately needs to stay alive. As he holds the food closer, urging her to take it, he demonstrates a sense of solidarity with her, a willingness to give up his own comfort to ensure her survival. The alien woman's initial reaction is one of disbelief. She stares at the food and then at the protagonist, clearly shocked by the offer. She had not expected compassion from a human, especially after being abandoned by her own crew. Her species, the Yonts, are known for their pride and intelligence, and it's likely that she has never experienced a situation where her life depended on the kindness of a stranger, especially one from a species she might have considered inferior. The alien woman's reaction is emotional and filled with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. She cannot fathom why the protagonist would share his food with her. In her words, "You would share your food with me after everything?" reflect her disbelief that someone would offer kindness without expecting anything in return. The protagonist's simple response, "We all need food to survive. I can't just leave you here to die," reflects a deep understanding of shared humanity. His willingness to act in the face of another's suffering speaks to the core of what it means to be human, to look beyond one's own survival instincts and recognize the suffering of others. This exchange, though seemingly small, carries immense emotional weight. It breaks down the barriers between species, highlighting the universal need for connection, compassion, and survival. The moment becomes a quiet but powerful demonstration of what it means to truly help another being, regardless of their origins, and sets the stage for the relationship between the protagonist and the alien woman to evolve into something far more meaningful than either had anticipated. The act of receiving food from the protagonist triggers a significant emotional transformation in the alien woman. When she initially looks at the food, she is overcome with disbelief, clearly shocked that a human would offer her such an act of kindness. This moment is pivotal because it shows that her entire worldview, shaped by pride and independence, is being challenged. The alien woman is part of a species known for their strength, beauty, and intelligence, traits that would likely make them more accustomed to giving than receiving help. Yet, here she is stranded and vulnerable, dependent on the help of a human. This reversal of roles, from one who would typically be in a position of power to one who is in desperate need of assistance, creates a moment of profound realization for her. As the alien woman takes the food from the protagonist's hand, her hands tremble, revealing the extent of her physical weakness. The trembling is a subtle but telling detail, indicating that this act of receiving care is not just about hunger, but also about a deeper emotional vulnerability. She has been alone in the desert for an unknown amount of time, likely struggling with despair and fear. Her need for nourishment is immediate, but there is also an emotional nourishment she craves, validation, connection, and a reminder that kindness exists even in the most unlikely places. As she eats, her breathing becomes easier, a sign that her physical strength is slowly returning. But more importantly, a transformation occurs in her perception of her situation. For the first time since her abandonment, she experiences relief, not only from hunger, but from the overwhelming sense of isolation and hopelessness that has defined her survival until this point. After taking the food, the alien woman looks at the protagonist with a mixture of gratitude and awe. She tells him that she never expected anyone to help her, that she had resigned herself to dying alone. Her voice is thick with emotion, and her words carry the weight of someone who has felt entirely forgotten by the universe, someone who had been abandoned by her own people and left to face death alone in an unforgiving desert. The kindness shown by the protagonist is not just a matter of physical survival. It represents a restoration of her sense of hope. The alien woman's previous understanding of the world, built on pride and self-reliance, now has to make room for a new understanding. That kindness, vulnerability, and shared humanity are equally important forces that transcend species and individual strength. This emotional transformation is reinforced by the physical change in her as well. After receiving the food, the alien woman no longer looks as frail. Her body and spirit begin to revive, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, she smiles. The smile is small, faint, but it carries tremendous weight. It signifies her emotional recovery, the rediscovery of hope in the face of overwhelming despair. The alien woman is no longer just a stranded, starving figure in the desert. She is now someone who has experienced an act of profound kindness and who has begun to see a glimmer of light at the end of her dark journey. The transformation from a victim of circumstance to someone who begins to regain her strength and sense of self is both emotional and physical, and it marks a crucial turning point in the narrative. For the protagonist, this moment of the alien woman's emotional transformation is equally significant. He sees her not just as an alien or a vulnerable being in need, but as a person who is capable of experiencing profound gratitude and connection. This shared moment of vulnerability and empathy lays the foundation for a deeper relationship between them. The alien woman, once so distant and proud, now sees the protagonist not as an inferior species, but as someone capable of great compassion. Her emotional transformation reflects a shift in how she views not only humans, but the potential for kindness in a universe that she had previously viewed as harsh and indifferent. In essence, this moment serves as a turning point for both characters. The alien woman begins to see that not all humans are selfish or indifferent, and the protagonist learns that acts of compassion can transcend boundaries, including those between different species. The alien woman's emotional transformation represents a healing process, both physical and psychological, as she begins to rebuild her strength and outlook on life. This transformation is not just about survival. It is about restoring her faith in connection, compassion, and the possibility of being helped when everything seemed lost. After sharing his food with the alien woman, the protagonist experiences a deep, reflective moment on the nature of human compassion. This is not just a fleeting thought. It's a pivotal moment of self-awareness and introspection. Throughout the narrative, the protagonist's actions have been driven by a sense of duty and empathy. But it is only now, as he witnesses the alien woman's emotional transformation, that he begins to truly understand the significance of his own behavior. The alien woman's gratitude and the small, faint smile she offers him serve as the catalyst for this reflection. In her eyes, he sees not just a life saved, but the profound impact that one act of kindness can have on another being. The protagonist's reflection is rooted in a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. Despite the harsh conditions of the desert, his choice to help someone in need, regardless of their species, highlights a core aspect of humanity: the capacity to feel for others and act out of compassion. In a world that often emphasizes survival and individualism, the protagonist's decision to put another's needs before his own is an affirmation of the belief that kindness is not just a moral obligation, but a fundamental part of what makes us human. The protagonist acknowledges that it is easy to become cynical, especially in situations where survival is at the forefront. Yet his actions demonstrate the profound human ability to rise above self-interest and extend empathy to those who are suffering. The protagonist's words, "Not all humans are selfish. I guess we just need to be reminded of what really matters sometimes," reveal his deeper realization. He is acknowledging that humanity is capable of both good and bad, that individuals are not defined solely by their flaws or weaknesses, but by their choices and their ability to act with kindness. This sentiment suggests that, even though humans are often portrayed as selfish or driven by their own desires, there is an inherent potential for goodness that can emerge, especially in the face of another suffering. The protagonist reflects on the idea that sometimes humans need a reminder of this compassion, a reminder that transcends societal norms or self-preservation instincts. This moment of reflection is critical because it represents the protagonist's shift from merely performing an act of kindness to understanding why he did it. Initially, his actions were driven by an instinctive desire to help the alien woman survive. Now, through reflection, he comprehends that his compassion is part of something larger, a shared human experience that connects all beings, regardless of their backgrounds or species. The protagonist's recognition of this deeper connection offers a new perspective on his identity as a human. He begins to see that perhaps more than survival or strength, it is the ability to care for others that defines humanity in its most profound sense. The exchange between the protagonist and the alien woman also prompts him to reassess the way humans are viewed by other species. The alien woman had initially been told that humans are selfish, that they only care about themselves. Her worldview, shaped by her species' pride and self-reliance, had made her skeptical of any help from a human. Yet, through the protagonist's actions, she learns that compassion can exist even in the most unlikely places. This realization not only transforms the alien woman's perception of humanity, but also reshapes the protagonist's understanding of his own species' place in the universe. He begins to realize that, despite the flaws or misconceptions others might have about humans, the potential for kindness and connection is universal, and that this potential is what ultimately sustains life across worlds. This introspection on human compassion deepens the emotional complexity of the protagonist's character. He moves from being a simple traveler in the desert, driven by the practical need to survive, to someone who sees his actions as part of a greater narrative of empathy and connection. His reflection leads to a quiet, yet profound understanding that, in the end, it is the small acts of kindness, like sharing a meager ration of food with a starving stranger, that can ripple out to have lasting effects. These moments, though seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe, carry the power to change lives and perceptions, and it is in these moments that humanity's true strength lies. The protagonist, by simply choosing to help, embodies this truth. After receiving the protagonist's help, the alien woman undergoes a profound shift in her perception of humans and, by extension, her understanding of herself and her own species. Her initial attitude toward humans, shaped by her species' pride and belief in their superiority, is one of distrust and disdain. The Yants are depicted as a proud, intelligent species known for their beauty and regal bearing. In the context of this pride, they view humans as beneath them. The alien woman, therefore, starts from a place of skepticism, perhaps even seeing humans as mere obstacles to be ignored or discarded. However, this perception begins to unravel as she experiences the humanity and compassion extended to her in her moment of need. Her transformation begins when she takes the food offered by the protagonist. At first, she is unsure, almost hesitant to accept help from someone she views as an inferior species. Yet, as she eats and feels the immediate physical relief, she also begins to confront the dissonance between her previous understanding of humans and the reality of her current experience. The food is not just nourishment for her body. It becomes a symbol of the kindness and empathy she is receiving, which contrasts sharply with the prideful and self-reliant nature of her own people. She starts to see the protagonist not as someone to be looked down upon, but as an equal, a fellow being who is capable of compassion and care, regardless of species. The alien woman's growing gratitude is evident in her words and actions. As she finishes the food and her physical strength begins to return, she expresses her gratitude deeply and sincerely. The simple words, "thank you," take on an emotional weight, as they signify not just thanks for the nourishment, but also for the emotional and psychological relief that she had not expected. She had resigned herself to the belief that no one would find her in the desert, and now, not only has someone found her, but they have also chosen to help her without hesitation. This act of kindness challenges everything she thought she knew about humans, and it opens her heart to the possibility that not all humans are selfish or indifferent. Her statement, "You're different from what I expected," underscores the transformation in her worldview. She had been taught that humans are driven by self-interest, but her experience has shown her otherwise. This transformation in the alien woman's perception is further reinforced by her growing respect for the protagonist. She acknowledges the kindness he has shown her, which creates a shift in how she views him, not as an inferior being, but as someone worthy of admiration. The protagonist's words, "Not all humans are selfish." I guess we just need to be reminded of what really matters sometimes, have a lasting effect on her. They challenge her preconceived notions about humanity and force her to reconsider her species' beliefs. Her gratitude becomes a powerful expression of her change in perspective, as she realizes that compassion transcends pride, and that survival is not just about physical strength, but also about the strength of one's ability to care for others. Her newfound respect and gratitude are also seen in the way she strengthens herself, both physically and emotionally. She gains a sense of hope and resolve, inspired by the kindness she has received. When she expresses her determination, saying, "I will not forget this kindness," it is not just a promise of gratitude, but a declaration of the transformation that has occurred within her. She is no longer just a helpless, starving alien, but a being who has been reminded of the beauty and power of compassion. This shift marks a significant moment in her character development, as she now recognizes the value in the act of giving and receiving help, and she carries that knowledge with her. Moreover, this transformation also signals a broader shift in her understanding of her own species. The Yants, known for their pride, had always placed themselves above others. However, through this experience, the alien woman begins to see that true strength does not lie in dominance or superiority, but in the ability to empathize, to show vulnerability, and to accept help when needed. Her gratitude and the new sense of hope that she carries with her serve as a testament to the profound impact of kindness on an individual, regardless of their origin or background. In this moment, the alien woman is not only transformed emotionally but also spiritually. Her perception of humanity is no longer tainted by the prejudices and pride of her species, but is instead rooted in a more profound and universal understanding of what it means to be alive and connected to others. Her gratitude becomes a way of acknowledging the power of human compassion to bridge the divide between species, reminding both herself and the protagonist that even the smallest acts of kindness can create lasting change and foster new bonds in a universe filled with alien worlds and cultures. The interaction between the protagonist and the alien woman is a pivotal moment not just for survival, but for the establishment of a deep and meaningful connection that transcends the boundaries of species. Throughout the story, both characters come from vastly different backgrounds. One human, the other an alien from a distant galaxy. But their shared experience of compassion and mutual dependence for survival forms the foundation of their bond. The protagonist, who initially sees the alien woman as an unknown, frail, and desperate being, begins to view her as a person worthy of respect, understanding, and empathy. Likewise, the alien woman, who has been taught to see humans as selfish and inferior, begins to recognize the shared humanity that exists between them, allowing her to break down her own prejudices and biases. This moment of connection is not just a simple exchange of food or assistance. It is the recognition that, despite the vast differences between their species, they are both sentient beings with similar fundamental needs and emotions. The protagonist's decision to help, rooted in empathy, allows the alien woman to see him not as an enemy or a lower being, but as someone who is capable of recognizing her pain and responding with kindness. This recognition sparks a shift in her understanding of humanity. Where she once viewed humans through the lens of superiority and pride, she now sees them as equals who possess a capacity for compassion that transcends their cultural or biological differences. In turn, the alien woman's transformation begins to affect the protagonist as well. While his initial actions were guided by a sense of duty or instinct, as he witnesses the profound change in the alien woman, he begins to recognize that this interaction is about more than just saving her life. It is about the shared human experience of connection. When the protagonist says, "We both have a lot to learn from each other," it encapsulates the essence of the bond that is formed between them. He no longer sees the alien woman as a mere object of pity or charity, but as a fellow being who has something to offer him in return. It is a mutual exchange of respect, understanding, and vulnerability. Both characters are transformed by this interaction, and through this transformation, they come to understand that connection is not bound by species, language, or culture. It is a universal aspect of existence that transcends all barriers. The protagonist's realization that the alien woman has a lot to learn suggests a deeper philosophical understanding. It's not just that humans are capable of helping, but that every species, regardless of their origin or nature, has something to teach. The alien woman's pride and initial misconceptions about humanity are shattered, and in that space, she is able to recognize the qualities that make humans capable of such profound compassion. On the other hand, the protagonist, who may have seen himself as merely helping someone in need, now understands that this exchange has also given him something valuable. The act of sharing a simple meal, offering help without expecting anything in return, serves as a reminder of the shared nature of suffering, survival, and kindness across the cosmos. This moment of connection is also marked by the physical and emotional closeness they share. As the alien woman regains her strength and begins to sit up, the protagonist helps her to her feet, a symbolic gesture that highlights their newfound bond. No longer is he merely a rescuer and she a helpless alien. They are now partners in survival, a reminder that even in the most dire circumstances, individuals from vastly different backgrounds can find common ground. When the alien woman says, "You have saved my life," she is not just acknowledging the protagonist's actions, but recognizing the deeper, intangible connection that has formed between them. In turn, the protagonist's acknowledgement that it just felt right speaks to the intuitive understanding that compassion and kindness are not just optional acts. They are essential to the well-being of all sentient beings, regardless of their origin. Their moment of connection is not limited to words, but also to the emotional and existential exchange between them. The alien woman's transformation from a starved, helpless figure into someone who now stands with renewed hope and determination is a testament to the power of empathy and understanding. This transformation is echoed in the protagonist's realization that the act of saving someone, helping them not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to alleviate their suffering, holds immense power. It redefines what it means to be connected across species, as both characters come to understand that the smallest acts of kindness can foster the deepest relationships, forging bonds that go beyond the immediate and the tangible. In a broader sense, this moment exemplifies the potential for unity and connection in the universe. The protagonist and the alien woman represent the possibility that, despite the challenges of interspecies interactions, empathy can bridge the gaps between the most distant and disparate beings. Their bond is a quiet yet profound reflection of the universal need for connection, understanding, and shared humanity. This realization leaves both characters with a deep sense of peace and purpose, knowing that even in a universe filled with the unknown, compassion can be the thread that binds all life together. The final point of the story revolves around the enduring impact of small acts of kindness and how they can change the course of events, not just for the individuals involved, but for the broader context in which they exist. Throughout the narrative, the protagonist's decision to offer help to the alien woman is driven by an instinctive compassion. This moment, though seemingly small and isolated, a single ration shared between two beings, is revealed to be far more significant. It underscores the idea that even the simplest gestures can have ripple effects that extend far beyond what might initially be expected. The protagonist's actions, though grounded in his immediate desire to alleviate her suffering, become a symbol of the broader power of human compassion to transcend barriers, whether those are species, cultures, or worlds. When the protagonist reflects on the meaning of his actions, particularly at the moment he tells the alien woman, sometimes the smallest gestures could change the course of everything. He is acknowledging the profound weight of even the most seemingly insignificant acts. In the grand scheme of the story, the act of sharing a small piece of food could easily be overlooked as trivial. However, as the narrative reveals, it is this very act that shifts the alien woman's perspective and saves her life. This shows that moments of compassion can have consequences that far exceed the initial exchange. It is through small gestures that larger shifts in understanding, relationships, and even power dynamics can take place. The protagonist's reflection also alludes to the broader human experience of finding meaning in simple, everyday interactions. At a time when many characters in the story might have seen their situation as bleak or hopeless, the protagonist chooses to focus on what can be done, however small, to alleviate the suffering of another. This choice to act in the face of adversity becomes a defining feature of the protagonist's character, showing that in a world full of complex struggles and existential challenges, the true measure of strength often lies in the ability to offer kindness to others. This realization is not only significant for the alien woman, who is transformed physically and emotionally by the act of receiving help, but also for the protagonist. In helping her, he learns something profound about himself and humanity's potential. His decision to help her was not motivated by self-interest or the expectation of any reward. It was simply an intuitive and genuine response to seeing another being in need. As the alien woman gains strength and expresses her gratitude, the protagonist also comes to understand that acts of kindness don't need to be grandiose or earth-shattering to have profound significance. Instead, it is the sincerity and intention behind the gesture that truly matters. Furthermore, this point speaks to the universal nature of compassion. The alien woman, initially from a race known for their pride and superiority, learns from the protagonist that true strength is not about dominance, but about the ability to care for others. As she gains a renewed sense of hope and determination, it becomes clear that this lesson is not just about survival in the harsh desert, but about a larger, philosophical understanding of what it means to be alive and connected. Her realization that we both have a lot to learn from each other is a recognition of the mutual potential for growth that exists between individuals from vastly different backgrounds. The sharing of food is a simple exchange, yet it becomes the foundation for a profound bond that transcends species and cultural divides. The final lines of the story emphasize how small actions, like sharing a piece of food, can transform the course of an individual's life. When the protagonist and the alien woman share a quiet moment of understanding, their connection signifies a larger truth. No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever truly insignificant. This truth resonates deeply, not just in the context of the narrative, but in the broader human experience. The protagonist's recognition that sometimes the smallest gestures could change the course of everything reflects the idea that even the smallest expressions of empathy and care can create lasting change, both for those who give and for those who receive. In this sense, the story becomes a meditation on the power of compassion to heal, unite, and ultimately change the world. Through the protagonist's simple yet profound choice to offer help, the alien woman is given not just food, but a renewed sense of hope, strength, and understanding. It shows that acts of kindness don't have to be monumental to be life-changing. In fact, it is often the small, quiet moments of compassion that have the most lasting effects, not just for the individuals directly involved, but for the wider universe they inhabit. This lesson is one that both the protagonist and the alien woman carry with them, a reminder that no act of kindness is too small to make a difference in the world.